is the monthly Now Page vlog where I just do a professional and personal update on my life. Today's my birthday. Every year I do this on the 1st, which is the first day of the month of July, is my birthday. It's always weird for me to be making content on a day that I normally just kind of take off and relax, but I find that these episodes are interesting enough to do regardless. Because when I want to share with you what's going on in my life, it's important to me. And I'm hoping that if you're watching this, then that's important to you in some way, whether you're family or just a friend or something like that, or maybe just me down the line. This particular episode, I'm a little bit stressed out because I don't feel quite where I need to be. And so this idea that I am stuck is not quite the right word, but it does feel like that because I literally have been trying to move down to Austin for the last 5 years, 6 years at this point, and I turned 29 today. So I kind of felt in my head that a lot of my 20s were wasted because I wasn't able to enjoy being around in a bigger city in my younger years, although obviously 30s are still quite young as well. But I kind of thought I would move to Austin at 25 or something like that, spend a handful of years there, and then when I turn 30, like I am now, almost now actually at this point, I would be in Singapore maybe. And so that was the kind of mindset that I had in my head, the timeline in my head. And constantly throughout my life, I found myself kind of struggling with this idea that, wow, I am not like predicting the timelines right. In my head, I thought I would be at a certain point with the YouTube channel, for example, and I would be making content every day or at least every week or something like that. Never quite ended up happening. In 2019, I got kind of close, but I still kind of failed. That was particularly the Omni content back then, just our Poly content series, essentially what it was eventually. But that idea, that series was making a blog post and video and podcast every single episode. And while it was effective, it just wasn't super easy to do at my skill level. I think now it'd probably be better, but eventually in 2020, I was preparing to accelerate. And then all of a sudden I started doing interviews. And so that whole plan got derailed. And that's okay. But again, you can't predict what's going to happen. I got sick last year, deathly ill, and it still haunts me to today. Like I was talking to somebody about it this last week, and it was just like that entire month, I was just kind of pale, weak, couldn't do anything. And so this idea that you don't know what's going to happen next, you don't know how long it's going to take for you to actually accomplish something too. So I guess professionally, the difference is I started working for Opus in January this year. Well, technically October last year, but mainly January this year. And it was essentially a 6-month contract. And so in June, midway through June, I decided that I don't want to continue the contract. Not that it wasn't great work, and I actually really liked my boss. In fact, pretty much probably the best boss I've had, or one of the best bosses I've had my entire career. And I've had, 24 different jobs, over a dozen different employers. So that's saying something. But I felt like I was going to get overworked if I continued there. And I just did not have the bandwidth for that. This is presumably my last summer in Colombia. And so I have a ton of swim lesson clients that I've built up relationships over the years with. And I want to continue that for them and at least give them one final send-off. And it pays decently well too, at least so I can kind of stay stable at this time until I find another job. But I wanted to do that while I was still here. I also have 3 YouTube channels I'm trying to run. And while I'm still struggling to get all 3 continuous at the same time, I'll either get 2 really good or just 1 really good. Can't quite get all 3 just yet, but I think that's mainly because I haven't started streaming yet. That is not fear. That is something I'm anxious about, is streaming, because making content, it's easy for me now. I've done it enough times. This is probably my 450th video I've probably made at this point. Like actual video, not even short form. Short form, I've made thousands. And I've made almost 300 podcasts at this point. I've done nearly 100 interviews on other people's shows. At this point, making recorded content, I'm fine with. I've been on a handful of live podcasts too, but that generally I'm not hosting, I'm not doing a lot of the work, I'm just answering questions. However, doing the live stream myself is still kind of weird to me. I am setting up OBS for this. I was thinking about Streamlabs because I want the multi-stream. That is like something I'm very key on doing, but I don't know if I want to do that or not. When it comes to right off the bat, I might just start off with Twitch and YouTube and call it a day. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Maybe I'll use Restream.io or something like that. The other thing is, I'm trying to move to Austin. And at this point, I paid off my debt. I got a new computer. Hopefully you can't hear the fan because I'm kind of annoyed how loud that is. I turned down the power profile, so hopefully it's not too loud during the recording. I tested it. I don't think it's too loud. I don't think you can hear it, but I'm still getting used to the new setup. I'm still getting used to just the sensitivity of the mic. Like yeah. But personally, that kind of affected me too, where I was like, okay, now I might not have the ability to go to conferences as easily, or I might not have as much income right now, which might slow down my, moving to Austin. There's 3 trips I'm planning on doing right now, and that's my main priority at this point because that's progression. I want to go back to Podcast Movement, which ironically was the conference where I got sick last time, but it was due to my Airbnb, not the conference itself. And that's the biggest podcasting conference, I think, in the world, let alone the US. But I want to go to that, especially since I made connections there. I want to continue those going. And I want to go to Vid Summit, which is probably the de facto YouTuber conference out there, creator conference. And I think that's a big deal for me to go to. Plus, it is in Dallas, which is a lot closer to Austin than Missouri. And so I'm thinking the other trip I need to do is to Austin so I can scope out where I want to live. I'm thinking maybe I could just combine those trips and go to Dallas first, then take a plane over or bus over from Dallas to Austin and explore after that. And that way I can kind of save some money when it comes to travel costs. But the process of a lot of that does cost money. I need to save up for that. So saving up money, now that I've paid off my debt, that's great. That is something that I've been struggling with for years because I've just kind of been treading financially. I haven't been swimming, if you will, or progressing up until this year. But the fact I finally got this computer, shout out to Herc, the brand, and it is an Indiegogo campaign I supported because I was looking at all these different mini PCs. I guess we're going on a tangent now. I've been looking at mini PCs for a decade, over a decade now at this point. I've been obsessed with it. I've been wanting to build a mini PC for a long time. Get an ITX motherboard and just a tiny little in-win case. But the computer that I have here is even smaller than that. And it is so capable. So just for perspective, I built my last PC relatively top of the line. It wasn't necessarily the best of the best, but it was the best I could do at the time. I got a Ryzen first generation, but it was the 1800X, so it's probably the best one you could get at that time. I had 32 gigs of RAM, which was double the amount I had on my last computer before that. However, I realized it was actually slower RAM, and I didn't know that when I bought it, or didn't quite realize it would be a hindrance, but it wasn't too bad. And then got a terabyte SSD, but I didn't get an NVMe SSD, so I was holding myself back on speed there too, because I didn't know the difference. That was when they first basically came out, so I was still kind of learning what M.2 drives were even about, just like everyone else. But I could have done better research. And then my GPU was kind of upper mid-range at the time, and over time became just mid-range. And so this system, even though it's integrated graphics, 780M, it's essentially equivalent to the GPU that I had before, but a lot newer drivers, so it should perform actually a little bit better. The RAM is double the amount of speed, double the amount, so it went from 32 gigs to 64 gigs, and the megahertz is literally double though it was before. And then the SSD is actually double the size and probably double the speed, or more than that actually, considering that I think my max for the SSD I had before was probably 700 megabytes per second. This is probably multi-thousand megabytes per second. And so this computer itself is already a lot better. And it's tiny too, so it's much easier to move. That's one thing I wanted to have. It takes up less space on my desk. I could always set up another mini PC over here for streaming. So I have one for streaming, one for gaming. That way I can actually separate the workload. So honestly, this is going to be a way better setup. Super excited about that. I got this new light. I got the new camera. Overall, I've been able to upgrade my setup. I've been able to do the things that I've been wanting to do. I got the light on Marketplace too for super cheap. It made me really happy. In life though, there's no romantic prospects. There's no job prospects. And there's not even a prospect for a third place in my town that I'm in. Which sucks because there's hardly really anybody my age here. It's generally college kids and old people. That's what this place is for. It's a retirement place or it's a college place. I want to go to a city where there's a lot more people my age, a lot more technology and liveliness and startups and conferences, all these different places that I want to enjoy and experience. And that's why I'm so gung-ho about moving. And at this point now, I have nothing holding me back, because the one thing I have here is family and friends, and I get to experience that with them. I was hanging out with them all weekend. It makes me happy to spend time with people I care about. But I could always Zoom call. I could always visit. Those are things that people like that will always stick around, at least if you treat them well. But at that point, I can't let just that hold me back from where I want to be. And so, yeah, I don't know if I necessarily need to make this video any longer. I think I guess I need to go into the point of what's coming up next. And ironically, this is the first time in a while where I made the video before I made the blog post. And that don't normally happen, but I guess today is that day. Coming up in life, I don't have a pause button on this new OBS too. So normally I pause and think about what I'm going to say, but I'm just going to go off the cuff. I'm going to be going on those trips. I got a new travel bag and everything I'm super excited about using. Like, honestly, when you get a new bag like that, it just, it makes you excited to travel. And I think that I'll be traveling a lot more now that my car's fixed. And on top of that, too, I can hopefully more afford it better, too. So those trips are really key. And honestly, I don't necessarily have to wait until I don't have to wait till after those trips to move, but I need to make sure I have enough money for it. So I'm calculating how much it's going to be and how much I need to save up for. Now that I'm caught up, I'm really excited about that. Additionally, I guess actually this is past, but I no longer have that third place. I used to go to karaoke in town, a place called Eastside, and now every time I walk in there, I feel shitty. And just due to the way I got kind of shafted as a DJ there, and on top of that, every time I walk in there now, it just doesn't feel right. Which really sucks because that place felt like another home to me, which is what a third place is supposed to be, because you have work and you have home. You need a third place to really be happy. The science is behind that. And some people's third place is the library or something like that. But for me, that's not it. And so it was weird because when I went to Vegas and LA, I couldn't find another karaoke place, even in those big cities. So that was kind of disappointing. But hopefully maybe in Texas. I don't know. Other than that, if you have any questions about my life and you want to know more, you can go ahead and leave it down below. Otherwise, thank you for watching. And go check out the blog post too, because I'll probably write something different in there too. But bye.